shake it. Doing it all for brief relief. All the mothers of the children of the world.
All right, we are live on February 8th, Uber live stream, talking about Planetary Annihilation. I'm John Maver, I'm here with
Steve Thompson,
partner in crime. And we've got a couple of different things going on today, and let's just get right into it, right?
All right. So, are we gonna release the Delta? Let's release the Delta.
Unleash the Delta, Commander.
Unleash the Delta.
Can you pause the iPhone?
All right.
All right. So, this is one of the big things that we wanted to talk about today was, the plan for the commanders. We have a lot of custom commanders and, some of the process that we're going through. So, Steve, you want to talk a little bit about kind of the process of creating this commander and some of the kind of thoughts that you had during this?
Yeah, I mean, we have over 100 commanders to make, right? So, we have to kind of think long term about what our strategy is going to be for the design, because we have a lot of different variants we want to get across, and the function and how they read on the field of battle and all that kind of stuff. So we thought, hey, let's build one commander from concept to completion, just to kind of get a sense for what we're up against. And so yeah, we faced a lot of challenges along the way, but it's a pretty fun process. We got the backers involved, which was awesome. Got some amazing feedback from people who have pre-ordered the game and are getting involved in that whole process, which is great.
So I actually think that's one of the biggest deals of the whole thing was this process that we went through. Maybe this is a good time to give a shout out to the people in the forum that participate. So for those of you that have been involved with Kickstarter, supported us, or that have pre-ordered the game, you have access to the backer forum. The backer forum, originally I wasn't so hot on the idea, to be honest. There was a lot of I kind of wanted to keep everything out in the open, but then we realized, maybe there's a way that we can use the backer forum to kind of get some preview information before we release stuff. Yep. So in the case of the Delta, we did some renders, about, what was that, a week ago? Last week?
Yeah.
And we released those into the forum, and we got some feedback from the fans, and it actually helped us to kind of reformulate this guy a little bit, because when we looked at the functionality vis-a-vis the graphics, a lot of people were like, well, hey, Commander should be more asymmetrical. You had this concept in your head of like these kind of dual guns, right? They were construction / Uber cannons.
Yeah.
And we transitioned to basically saying, you know what, let's firm the design up a little bit more, and let's drive the visuals a little bit more off the actual design that we want to do with the commanders.
Yeah, that's what's so great about the forum, the backers forum, is because we introduced those renders, and I thought, oh, it'd be cool to have symmetric arms, because the commander can only do one thing at a time. It can either shoot or it can build. I thought, well, why don't the weapons just be symmetric, because that'll look cool and powerful. And I thought, oh yeah, that's a good direction to go. We put them up on the backers forum, and one of the first responses is like, why are the arms the same? They should be asymmetric so that we can identify that, hey, it's a dual function commander. I thought, oh, that's a really good point. What was great about that is that it initiated a big discussion about commanders. And we got so much feedback and so many great ideas that you and I sat down and started talking about, well, what is going to be the function, and what are going to be the options for the weapons, and does the construction arm do other things, and where can the arms go, and can the construction arm go on either side? And it just opened up this wealth of questions that we had to kind of lock down. So that feedback was invaluable. So thanks to all you guys that I read every one of those posts, and I read them twice, and I thought, man, these are great. And thanks for your input. It was great. It really drove the process.
So I've had this concept for a while that the commanders are going to have a level of kind of configurability in terms of them, right? All the people that are getting custom commanders, I wanted them to have some options, when they build out their commander. And the idea here wasn't to make these options be game breaking or something like that. It was just to kind of give them a bit more texture. And so immediately on the forum there was this huge amount of feedback of like, this is going to be unbalanced, people are going to have commanders that other people can't have, it's going to screw the game up.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've honestly, it's made me reconsider the whole thing to the point where I almost wanted to kill the idea. And we're not going to kill the idea, but we're going to try and explain it, right? So the idea is that, you know, there's a few different kind of Uber cannon weapons. They're not going to be incredibly different, but they may have some functionality differences. But all of those things that are available in the custom commanders are going to be available in the commanders that we have in the game for everyone.
Yep.
It's not going to be restricted to just certain people. There's not a balance issue. You know, there's visual differences and there's gameplay differences, but everything is available to everyone in every configuration.
Yeah, everything exists. It's just people who got the custom commander gets to just kind of choose and assemble what they want.
Exactly.
Which is great.
So let's talk about some of the details on this guy, because I think there's some interesting stuff in here.
Yeah, okay, so Hunter Commanders, big endeavor. There are a couple things we had to do. We had to clarify what its function was, and then we had to make it look cool. Those are the main goals. And so I thought I would walk you through the process of, and show you some of the shots from the early concept to what we ended up with. So the idea was that this commander has to read from, you know, fairly close up, and has to look cool. But as you pull back, I mean, you have to have an instant read on what it is and what its function is. And again, getting that feedback from the forum backers and saying, hey, that arm needs to be asymmetric. You can tell from this view right here that it does read. You can see the construction stripes right there. And if we're to take some of those visual motifs and put that on other kind of construction units, is that going to read as well? And through that process, we ended up with something that looks like this. So it may not look like this in the final, but it's pretty darn close, and it does read from a distance, and it's still consistent with the rest of the what we got going on game-wise. So we began this process by taking a look at the scale render that we released a few weeks ago. So this is a lineup of really blocky commanders. You can see that the beginning shapes of the progenitor, the alpha, and the theta over here, and which is great, but you know, not quite enough detail. So we thought, well, let's take one and finish it and add as much detail as we think we're going to need for the game. So I took the 3D model of the progenitor over here and just started expanding on that, because we have a rig for this guy, a skeletal structure that we're going to be using for animation. And we needed to make sure that it's the same skeletal structure for all these commanders, because they're going to be sharing that skeleton and animation set.
Now keep in mind, this is not the only skeletal structure. There's actually 4 different skeletal structures.
I didn't know that we were going to talk about that.
Well, I don't want to talk about it in detail. I just want people to know that there's even more behind this.
Just wait. We got some big plans for you guys. You just wait. It's going to be awesome. So this is one skeleton set of 4 that we are thinking about creating. This is a bipedal kind of skeletal set, and the idea is to take that bone structure and see how far we can push the design with one single skeleton set.
So the reason that you know, for those out there that don't know, the reason that it's important for us to kind of minimize the number of skeletons is because every time you have a new skeleton set, you basically have to build a whole new set of animations, right? Yep. And we can't. There's no way that we could build a whole set of animations for every single commander in the game. It would literally be impossible.
Yeah, it's just a ton of work. And so, so we just pushing different ideas, big shoulder pads and different shaped shoulder pads, these big shields on the side. But I was really liking the cone-shaped weapon. Is very, very direct, very, very weapony. And so I took that and I started coloring, playing with some team color ideas on, you know, how much team color, you know, maybe the mechanical parts would be kind of gray, like the joints here, the abdomen, and some of the parts that don't really necessarily need team color, you know, to keep them kind of metallic and functioning. Then I put this specular, this colored specular highlight on it, just to kind of make them pop a little bit more. You're realizing that the units need to have just a little bit of a sheen so that they pop away from the terrain a little bit. So as you can see, we added more detail to the joints and the abdomen and back of the legs, things like that. So it's kind of shaping up. So the goal for the Delta is that we want it to look kind of mean, and we want it to look athletic, and very focused. So that was kind of the things that we were thinking about when we were developing this. So we played with more ideas, and I thought, man, we really got to push the design a little bit more, because these are all going to look pretty similar if we don't start, extrapolating the design and thinking of new creative ways.
Yeah, you can only make so many different kinds of guys, and of course, anime has this covered with massive amounts of ideas and what you can do.
Oh yeah, great resources, So yeah, we pulled from that with more athletic-looking legs, more influenced for just pushing the style. That's the goal. So I took this 3D model and I did a paint over in Photoshop of just like, okay, that's okay, but let's really push it. Let's see how mean we can get this guy. Let's see how big we can make the components without it looking totally ridiculous. So this is what we ended up. This is just a Photoshop comp.
So I mean, you should point that out again. I mean, this is not a 3D render right here. It's a paint over, right?
Yeah, you can see that from this model, I just took a screenshot, a screen cap, and then I brought it into Photoshop and I did a quick paint over just to kind of play with some shapes. I mean, there were a bunch of different paint over options I had in here, and I kept playing with the shoulders, and I kept pushing them more and more. And the bigger they got, the cooler it kind of got. It got to the point where it was ridiculous, and I had to kind of scale them back a little bit. But I kind of landed on this because I like the.
Of course, some people might want some ridiculous.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. So I added some more panel lines and details, and I again played with a little bit more team color, things like that, just to see, okay, is it still reading? Is the silhouette clean? Do we have enough detail but not too much? So I was happy with this, and so I took this back into 3D Studio Max, and I did some texturing to kind of match, what I had for the concept. And I liked where it was going. And I thought, well, let's finish it out. So again, I added more detail, panel lines, lines. You can see I've kind of peeled it back just a little bit, because that model, when you pulled out, was still not reading because there were so many panel lines and things. It was just too complex. So I had to take it down a notch, and this is what we ended up with, and this is what we released to our backers forum.
And you can see here the primary difference between what we've got now and this version last week was the asymmetrical kind of arms, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Once we released it to our backers forum, that was some of the immediate comments. It was like, well, the arms don't make sense. They should be asymmetric. And so we took that feedback and we started playing around with some ideas for a construction arm.
Now, I just want to clarify, by the way, we're not going to, not every piece of feedback we're going to go and change something. Yeah. But in this case, it was like, yeah, you know what, they're right. Let's just make this read better and make more of a system for kind of how these pieces fit together in terms of, the construction arm, the Uber Cannon, which, by the way, the forum came up with the name Uber Cannon. I asked, what should the ultimate weapon of the commander be called? And somebody said it should be called the Uber Cannon. Yeah. It's hard to go wrong with that. And plus, you can put Uber in front of anything. Uber Cannon, Uber missiles, Uber laser, right? Uber nuke.
Yeah, that was good. It was a great idea, and it stuck right away. It was great. So, again, awesome feedback. So we had to come up with some designs for the construction arm, and I really wanted to do a triangular looking thing with these two sides that kind of popped out when it was engaged. I just love that idea of doing something, with that kind of a shape. And so I played around with a bunch of ideas with that in mind, and I like these canisters. But the minute I put it on the commander, it just looked weird. It just was not working. I couldn't get it to connect to the elbow in a convincing way. And it took some time, and I finally ended up just going with more of a square shape with a joint that was matching the other side of the commander, so consistent with this elbow joint. And it just seemed to flow a lot better. So I talked with Andrew, our amazing animator, about some ideas. I showed him this image, and I asked him what he thought, and said, "Hey, can you give me some feedback?" And he thought that these things over here are just kind of too complex. Why don't you just take this visual element and expand it out, and it might read a little bit better. And you know what? He was right on the money. Great advice. And so we ended up with this, which is a big, blocky, square construction arm. This is the old one, which was, again, too complex. Put these canisters on there, and these things pop open, and this thing pops open. And so right before it begins construction, you get this really cool animation of these things popping open and articulation. And
so let me ask you a question about the black and yellow striping. Who's the person that keeps harping about that?
John Maver. he's the lead on the project, and just that's all he talks about. Like, we have a hour or two discussion about it every day. So,
you know, it's funny. I'm not convinced it's necessary on the Commander, but I kind of like it. You know, I like the fact that
cool.
all the construction stuff has that, and
oh yeah.
for people that look at some of the stuff you were showing earlier, right? You could see there was another construction vehicle there with the striping on it.
Exactly. I mean, it's instant. It's such a iconic representation of its function, and again, I think that we need to remember that.
How do you think this Commander would do against the alien Hive Mother from Aliens?
Yeah, that's going to be a good fight. I'd like to see that.
As long as Sigourney Weaver was playing?
Yeah, exactly. Taking that visual element and, like we just talked about, extrapolating it to other units that would use that visual motif to describe its function. And again, making it read from a distance. And that's what we ended up with. So, I don't know. I'm pretty happy with how it integrates with the rest of the units. Its detail level and its silhouette is pretty identifiable. As you can see from the first animation we showed you, those wings on the Commander pop down so that you'll get a cleaner read of the team color and things like that. It'll be more simple. All these things compact in too on the Commander. So
yeah, we show that in the animation. We'll show that again so that
it does get a pretty quick read. So this is kind of the direction we're heading, and this is probably the final detail level we'll have for all of our Commanders. It's going to be a fun journey. So here's a comparison between...
well, they're watching the video right now.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there we go.
So before our forum feedback and then after. So awesome.
So let's keep in mind one of basically what's going to be 100 Commanders. A lot of those Commanders are going to be custom Commanders for people that have requested them, but there's going to be plenty of Commanders, don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those who haven't been exposed to the information, obviously we don't have the traditional RTS faction idea where there's this 100 units for this faction and 100 units for that faction. Conceptually, we have factions are groups, and Commanders belong to factions, right? So, but they all use the best units.
Yeah.
They all use the best weaponry. Why would they be using different weaponry? They just use the best thing they can possibly invent.
Absolutely.
But you can actually, by choosing your faction through choosing your Commander, you can kind of express yourself that way, and we have a lot of plans along those lines. So more of that will be revealed in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be cool.
So, so why don't we take some questions on this?
Yeah.
Do a little question period on this before we get to our next segment.
Chat is kind of broken right now.
Chat is broken. Okay, well, it's going to be hard to take questions then.
Alrighty.
Why don't we take questions from the studio audience? Anyone in the studio audience have any questions?
Why only one head?
Okay, so we have an audience member asking why there is only one head on the Commander. Tradition is the answer to that question. We've considered doing some, kind of, what do they call them when the twins are stuck together? Conjoined. We're thinking about doing some conjoined twin Commanders, but I haven't really gotten to that point yet. Good question, though.
Good question.
When's the alpha? That's a good one.
Never get that one.
When it's done. We have a date that we're shooting for right now. I don't want to announce it yet, but it's probably sooner than you think.
Will you be at Gamescom?
Is that actually a real question?
Yes.
Okay. Will we be at Gamescom? The answer is at least one person will be there. I'm 99% sure I'll be going to Gamescom.
We'll probably need some fan help.
And we may need some fan help there. Yeah, good point. So what's wrong with the chat room?
It's just sluggish, I think. But no, people are getting questions through now. Can you see it?
Yep. So what is the purpose of the shoulder part of the Delta Commander? Honestly, I just put them on there because it looked cool. I wanted to push the visual design of it. So the function actually came later. And I thought, oh, it'd be cool if these big missiles comes out and it would be, really dramatic, when he
Macross style.
Yeah,
kind of
like when he gets, when somebody comes, when his base is getting destroyed and people are trying to take out the Commander, he just opens up all these articulated weapons and he just unleashes hell on his opponent. That was the thinking behind it, but now they're just heat vents.
Well, who knows? Maybe they could become missiles again.
No, they're just
We'll
heat
see.
vents. Whatever. Ooh, nice. I like that. Okay.
Why is this game so sexy? Because Steve is sexy, and he's doing the art. So
It's all the programming. That's what it comes down to.
is there enough time to admire his commander, or will it be never seen or will we never see him in game? You're going to spend a lot of time with your commander. Early game commander is pretty critical. So,
Yeah.
Will you give us some prototypes? I'm not sure what that really means. Prototype what? Alpha?
Maybe pre-alpha.
There's a good one. Are the weapons going to be ballistic or lasers? We talked about different weapons.
So, we're going to give you, there's going to be a few different uber weapon choices on the commander. So, when you say more ballistic or lasers, we're going to have both. And missiles.
I like that question. On the bottom right there.
Are we going to have a commander with tank treads?
That's cool.
There is no current plan to have a commander with tank treads. However,
Unless somebody designs one.
well, yeah.
Bob, do you want-
None of the current commander designs have tank treads. I don't think. Do they?
No. Well, I mean, we did experiment with some ideas with treaded commanders, so it is a thought. How about that?
It's a thought. It wouldn't. There's not really any limitation on the commander design, so that could definitely happen. Minimum system requirements. I recommend you go ask that in the forum. We talk about that quite a bit there, and it's kind of too long of a conversation to have here.
Since you mentioned 4 skeletons, you know what those skeletons are going to be like.
Yes, we do.
We have a rough idea of what those skeletons are like. Yeah.
And we will release them with future updates, so stay tuned and become a backer and get involved. That'd be fun.
Yeah, so, the one thing we haven't talked about yet with the Delta Commanders, how would someone get this,
Yeah.
right? So, we're going to be announcing some more pre-order packages as well at store.uberent.com. I really want to emphasize to people, if you tell your friends to come and pre-order the game, we take that money and we spend it and make the game better,
Yep.
right? As everyone knows, the Kickstarter campaign was very successful, but this is it's a big game, and we want to make it as good as we possibly can.
Absolutely.
So the more people that pre-order the game, the more money we have to spend on the game, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's fun to be involved too, and it's great.
So let's take like 1 or 2 more questions, and then I want to move it on to the next segment. So what do we got? The difference between commanders, just visual, or are the functional differences? As I covered, there's going to be some functional choices that are going to be made based on your commander. So different pieces that will be swapped out that are functional. We'll try to balance those as much as possible. We'll have them available to everybody so that it shouldn't be a particular issue in terms of balance. That seems to be people's main concern,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Is
that's
like,
the most
oh,
common.
you could get access to a commander that has some unbalancing thing.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
Yep.
That can't happen.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be available to everybody. Just reemphasize that.
Yeah.
Can I build my own commander? Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
So the answer to that question is yes, because the game supports modding. Now, if you've built a mod commander, you'd have to have that mod
Yeah.
for everyone else to be able to see it. But you can certainly build your own commander, and there's definitely going to be a way for us to get those in the game. So we'll be announcing more along those lines later. But the mod community is super, super, super important to this game. We'll be making some announcements along those lines pretty soon, I think. But for all of you modders out there, you guys are really top priority, and we are going to be working with you before this game comes out. So, will you release a map maker? Map maker's built into the game, so that's kind of cool.
So yes.
So yes, yeah. Let me say
Yes.
yes. The answer is yes, and it's built into the game. And we actually showed that on a live stream that we did a while ago. We showed a version of it.
Yeah.
Any other questions there that you see that you think you want to answer, Steve?
Let me see.
Will it have a built-in mod manager?
Yes, built-in mod manager. How many game modes are there? As many as we make. There's a thread on the forum about that. Will there be environmental effects that alter gameplay? I don't know. Is an asteroid crashing into a planet an environmental effect?
Yeah, it's going to be.
Then I guess yes.
Huge.
1v1 true skill ranked. Yeah, we're definitely gonna have ranked games. What is the coolest commander ability the team has developed? I don't know. I would argue building stuff. Commanders can walk around and build stuff right now, so that's probably the best piece.
So far.
Will mods be easy to distribute? Yes, they will. What about snow and ice? Yes, there is already snow in the game. Will there be a sandbox? Absolutely. Will there be quadrupedal commanders? Maybe. If the commander is damaged, will parts fall off? Once you blow him up, then his parts will fall off.
All kinds of parts fall off. Everything will fall off.
So, will mods be Lua? No, there's no Lua. Again, if people are interested in details on modding and stuff, go to the forum and participate. So, I think we should move this on to the next segment.
Sounds great.
Thanks,
Guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This was great. I didn't even realize you had all those shots there.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah. Lots of art.
Will there be an economy system? No, there's no economy in the game.
No economy. And no robots. Robots are out.
So, yeah, let's move it on to the next segment.
Great.
I think we're a little blurry. Okay, so we're here for the next segment of the show. We're starting to kind of get this down. I don't know if you guys have this figured out, but we just kind of make stuff up in these shows. So I'm sitting here with Kevin Francis. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Hello.
Kevin is kind of one of the new guys on the team, and so I've been bringing guys on here and introducing them. So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a systems engineer that's been doing low-level engine stuff since, 99, something like that, and have been trying to get on to Uber for a long time, working with you guys.
That's right. We talked about you coming on board for years.
Yeah, like I guess 5 years, something like that, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And
well, we've only been around for 5 years, but
yeah,
pretty much the whole time.
Yeah, pretty much since you guys started, and it just never, the timing didn't work out. So I've been recently doing some more web-ish back-end stuff with like databases and not rendering at all. And you guys kind of needed that, so it was my opportunity to jump on board. So.
Right. So Kevin. It's been interesting because I haven't worked with too many other guys that have graphics background or can do that stuff. So the fact that you're able to step in and help me finish some of the stuff that we're working on is pretty cool. And your graphics experience is fairly deep, and your database experience is fairly deep. So it's kind of cool. You can do both.
Yeah. So, but I kind of tell people I'm a systems guy, and they're like, "Oh, you can do graphics. You're a graphics guy," because like that.
Well, graphics is harder. Most people can't do it, right? I mean, it's trickier. So let's see. You've been working on the project now for, I guess it's only really been 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, I guess so. It hasn't really been that long.
Yeah, because you were working on Ubernet stuff beforehand.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've actually been working on?
So I've been working mostly on the virtual texturing system, which lets us have the planets rendering really, really big textures. Right now they're actually 500,000 texels on the side, for those of you who know what a texel is. And that is a lot of data. So it lets us pull in little pieces of those textures and render them where they're supposed to be on screen. That allows us to do to put a whole bunch more detail in the planets, so that they're not just like little flat blobs of color or something like that, or blurry or anything like that. Like it goes all the way down to a little tiny level. Like it's something, I think right now we're aiming for 32 texels per meter. So it's going to look really cool.
And you can see what that scale is based on the kind of scale shots that we released. You know what a meter is in terms of the game size.
And then on top of that, it's also a very scalable system. So like if we're running on a lower end machine, we can actually turn down a whole bunch of parameters and render it a little bit blurrier. So it's like 8 texels per meter or whatever. Or if it's higher, then we can let it pull in a whole bunch more detail and render stuff higher resolution. So.
Yeah, this system, the more that I think about it, the more I'm like, we should just use this on everything, in every
Yeah.
game, everywhere,
Yeah.
right? This is a technique that I guess we give credit to Carmack for coming
Yeah.
up with this, right? It's the
Credit
same
where it's due.
same technique that Rage uses.
Yeah.
With the difference being that our system is 100% procedurally driven. There's
Yeah.
nothing stored on disk other than kind of the inputs into the system. And so I had written, I don't know, the first 90%, well, probably the first 20%, and then you were working on the second 90%,
Yeah.
like actually, getting it to work. There was some framework there, but you kind of took it through, and it's not 100% done yet, but
Yeah.
it's obvious that it will work. Right,
Yeah,
at
it's
this
gotten to the point where we've got the basic algorithm working. Now we're just making it have a whole bunch of extra detail and stuff like that.
So, some of the interesting things we can do with this system are stuff like, we have this awesome amount of detail for the procedural stuff to feed into, but during the gameplay, we can also feed into it, right? We can
Yeah.
do scorch marks that are permanent. We can do, potentially do things like trails behind tanks.
Yeah, I was thinking tread marks would be cool, when they're driving around and just not have them fade.
Yeah,
At all.
exactly. They're just there forever. Skirts around buildings. Basically whenever stuff smashes into the ground or does any kind of damage, it can go in the system. The whole thing's normal mapped, right? So we can do both normal
Yeah.
maps and regular stuff, materials, glows, all that kind of stuff. So I kind of wanted actually to demo some of it, but it's not.
not
We've got the
really
system
fun.
working, but we don't have the art in the
yeah.
system looking good enough to show it yet. But I think imminently we'll be trying to show off some of that stuff. So it's pretty sweet. Oh yeah, so I also wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Puffin. Do you know who Mr. Puffin is?
I don't know who Mr. Puffin is.
He's a friend of my stepdaughter Callie's, and I keep joking because they call him Mr. Puffin, and I'm like, I'm going to do a shout out to Mr. Puffin on the show, just to embarrass him.
Okay.
So shout out to you, Mr. Puffin.
Mr. Puffin.
So listen, do you want to take some questions from the
Sure.
crowd here? Let's see. Permanent scorch marks, awesome. Make those battles feel like they matter. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the whole concept, right, is you start off with a planet, and you're like, ooh, that's such a paradise. That looks beautiful. And then when you're done, it's like half blown up. There's like lava everywhere. It's scorched. There's nuke marks. Everything's radioactive.
Yeah.
That's kind of the plan, right?
Big holes and stuff, yeah.
I love seeing a game, how a game becomes a game. That's just a comment, not a question.
Yeah.
I love it too.
It's also a different journey for every game. Like for a while, I was being an independent contractor and helping out lots of different companies, and they all do it differently.
Yeah, there's very little commonality. I mean, the way that we like to do it is very iterative, right? It's like put a layer of paint on, put another layer of paint on, play test it, put another layer of paint on, and we've never been able to do it with an RTS game like we're going to do with this game, because when the alpha comes out, we'll be getting feedback on balance before the game is released. We'll be getting feedback on all kinds of stuff. We'll be able to get the mod guys in there actually doing stuff before the game comes out. So that's pretty. That's
it's a
pretty
really
incredible.
unique experience with like the all of our fans being so involved in the creation process. Like that's pretty much unprecedented because of the Kickstarter and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you've worked at some fairly large companies, right?
Yeah, like Monolith and Microsoft, and I worked for Surreal for a little bit on contract, and just basically I was doing stuff for big companies where they're like, we're going to make a game and it's going to come out and you guys are going to find out all about it when that happens, and this is like totally putting that on its head with like everyone knows right from the get-go that this game is like coming out and what it's going to be and that kind of stuff. So
I like it so far. I mean, I'm enjoying it so far. It is definitely more time consuming, right, to keep up the communication level, to do these live streams, all that kind of stuff. But
yeah.
So let's see. Would a planet be blown up in one place, rupture up lava? I'm not sure that's English, but yeah, I think I get your gist, and I think the answer is yes.
There's a John Ringo question.
Oh, what's the?
He said he just read the book. Can he hollow out an asteroid and make a planetoid?
So that's kind of like so the question was, from reading John Ringo, are we going to be able to hollow out an asteroid and make a battle station out of it effectively? Probably not right away, but There's not much that precludes stuff like that in the future, but it's probably not one of the first line features. Kind of is similar to a Dyson sphere, I guess.
Will there be random disasters? That's a pretty good question.
You know, I'm not a big fan of randomness. We could certainly do something. I might leave that to the community to put in. You know, do you really want to be sitting there, you're playing the game, you're about to win, and, you know, an earthquake happens, your commander falls into a crack and you lose? I don't know.
That sounds great. Not really.
There's definitely been a trend towards removing that kind of stuff from games, but...
Sounds like a good mod.
Yeah, it does sound like a good mod, right?
Will you turn a PA commander into an SMNC Pro?
Oh, what do you think, Eka? Are we going to turn commanders into pros?
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa? I don't know. Oh, I haven't really thought about that one. Probably.
Carl the commander.
Pit Girl the commander, yeah.
Will there be weather effects like rain, lightning, snow, and fog?
Honestly, that's like there's atmosphere, but I don't know if we're gonna go and start like doing rain and clouds and snow and stuff. It's just like, is that important to the gameplay? No, then we're probably not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Mod it.
Will the destruction of actual models stay on the planet's surface until reclaimed or until they fade? So there's going to be wreckage in the game, and you know, there are probably limits to the amount of wreckage that you can have, but hopefully that limit will be a very, very, very large number. You know, that's kind of a performance tuning question, I think, that it's hard to answer right now.
Yeah, and we could make that like part of the client settings, really, like how long they end up staying around.
Here's an interesting question. Somebody's asking, will there be sand trails that will stay where they are? So this is actually kind of interesting. With the virtual texturing, we could actually have it so when they go off of sand onto something else, they bring a little,
cool
a little trail.
Pull
right?
over the decals
you could totally,
from it.
you could do that. It'd be a little bit of work to, you know, get the right thing working. But where's Ben? He can handle that. Will wreckage block movement? Yes. Well, in places where it makes sense, like size relative.
Terrain, chip and fall away, and pass be opened or destroyed.
I have no idea what that means.
Like blowing a hole in a mountain to open a path to your enemy's base. Like if there's a mountain in the way, you...
Well, yeah, I mean, you can obviously damage the planets. I'm not... I think there's this open question as to whether nukes actually chip away at the ground or not, or whether we have something else that can do it. The engine can definitely do it, so...
Will planets blow up?
Well, let me ask a question in response to this. If you had a Death Star and you shot a planet, would the planet blow up?
It's supposed to.
What happened in Star Wars?
Yeah.
Let's see. Will projectiles move total annihilation style, or will they always hit? They will move total annihilation style. Will you be able to mass upgrade existing units? I'm not a big fan of upgrades. I'm definitely not spending a lot of time on upgrade systems. I'm much more of a believer in one roll per unit and letting the unit do its job. And if you want a different unit, build a different unit to do that. So I don't know how controversial that is, but I might as well be upfront about it because that's what the game is going to be.
I like this question. Can the commanders wear tanks as roller skates?
What do you think?
I think that sounds awesome.
Yeah. It's like shoes.
If it's like the enemy's tanks, you know, it's like, crush, and then like start skating with them. That'd be pretty
Leaving
cool.
trails behind.
Yeah,
Leaving trails behind. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, I just have this odd feeling that's not going to show up in the game. But I've been wrong before.
Or be able to harness sunlight to build lasers like in Live Free or Die.
Somebody wants to know if there's going to be a SAPL, which is like a sun-pumped mirror-based weapon system from Live Free or Die.
Sounds like a stretch goal.
Yeah. So, the idea, everyone should keep in mind, the idea with this game is we're going to release the game, and then we're going to keep adding stuff to the game.
Yeah.
And would I like to have a SAPL in the game? You're damn right I would. I think that would be awesome. Is it something that we're planning on doing day one? No, it's not. Okay, I just want to take a couple more questions unless you have something else to say, because these lights are hot.
Yeah, they are hot.
They are.
And I'm wearing a sweater today for some reason.
Will heat cold affect the performance of units? I don't know. My car seems to do okay in the cold, so I don't think that should be much of a factor. in the game. There's definitely going to be some stuff about the planets that affects the units in terms of how fast they move and all that kind of stuff, but I don't really see cold as being an issue for robots in the future.
Yeah, I'd say if they were kind of designed to operate well in space, there's kind of some extreme environments going on there. Usually you think of planets as being a little bit more like middle of the road, you know.
I think a better question would be: are can the units survive in a lake of liquid methane or something?
Yeah.
Like that?
Well, can they?
They can survive anywhere. They're robots.
Yeah.
They're badass robots. Okay, let's take one more question. Okay, so this is actually a good question. How fragile will your economy be early game? One mistake and your econ is stalled almost instantly. Are you going to address this issue? If so, how? So we want to basically design the economy in such a way as to make it easier to understand what's going on. Part of the big issue with the streaming economy is this whole concept of understanding that you have a flow through your economy, and that if you queue up a bunch of stuff, it'll let you queue up a bunch of stuff and literally kill your economy, right? So we're doing a few things in the design of the economy to try to make it easier to understand what's going to happen when you queue something up. But that doesn't really solve this problem of early game. You start off with your commander, and you're trying to get a bunch of stuff built, and you just kind of feel constrained and kind of bored because you just have to go through this rote process of building your economy. So to solve this, we've got this concept of the egg. And if you look at the commander in the original video, you'll see that when he comes into the planet, he's got this lander with him. The concept is that the lander is basically a configurable egg that can deploy into, effectively a mini base that will get you started on your economy and give you a little base to build up from, so that you can start making interesting decisions immediately instead of, build one solar panel, build one laser tower, build one factory, that kind of stuff. And the idea is the egg is configurable from the lobby so that you can kind of decide to what extent you get this advantage. So, it's kind of a different question that has nothing to do with virtual texturing or graphics or whatever, but it's been something that's come up a lot.
We're going to be drawing the egg.
Yeah, draw the egg, exactly. So I think I'm gonna kill this here. We've always got more stuff to talk about. We could go on for hours, but we actually have to do work too. So it's been fun. I think this has been a good segment. I think we're going to go to. We're trying to get on a pretty regular schedule with these things. I don't want to make any promises, but it's not going to be every week like it has been for the last couple of weeks. But expect to see a lot more stuff. And man, we're getting close to being able to show some real gameplay here. I mean, the pieces are really starting to come together. Graphics are coming together. There's a lot of work that's been done on the gameplay already. I just haven't wanted to show it because it doesn't look good yet.
Yeah,
so.
we don't have haven't thrown the artists on it yet to
exactly.
go say, okay, make some cool stuff.
So everybody, thanks a lot for watching, and we will see you on our next show.